Once again, I am reading from Matthew Fox's book, Original Blessing. We are on the fourth of four paths. The Via Transformativa is about creation renewed, seen anew, and righted from its state of sinful or unjust relationships. It is the cosmos mended and made whole again. It is the return of wisdom and of celebration and play. All this adds up to compassion. For compassion is the goal, the fullest energies of a human-divine marriage in the creation-centered spiritual tradition. Our creativity in all instances is to be put to the use of compassion. When it is not, then racism and sexism, militarism and giant capitalism will co-opt the image of God in people and use creativity not to return blessing for blessing, but to curse and destroy. The creation-centered spiritual tradition considers compassion rather than contemplation as the fulfillment of the spiritual journey that takes one back to one's origins in renewed ways. It considers justice to be absolutely integral to the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Today's scripture is Micah chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. What shall I bring when I come before Yahweh and bow down before God on high, you ask? Am I to come before God with burnt offerings, with year-old calves? Will Yahweh be placated by thousands of rams or 10,000 rivers of oil? Should I offer my firstborn for my wrongdoings, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Listen here, mortal. God has already made abundantly clear what good is and what Yahweh needs from you. Simply do justice, love kindness, and humbly walk with your God.
Would you pray with me? Gracious One, we have sought to learn a new perspective over the last few weeks. Ways to reconstruct theology that is not based in sinfulness and the need to be redeemed, fixed somehow, and instead has helped us to focus on the goodness within each of us and within creation. Help us to internalize that, to know the truth of that, to feel it, know it, live it. And may the words of my mouth, the meditations of each of our hearts, be filled with your wisdom and your insight. Amen. Hello, honey. So we've done 4 weeks now. This is your quiz of the morning. What was the first path? Scott? The Via Positiva. And you missed a week or two. Is that the only one you were here for? The Via Positiva, which is the path of experiencing God in what? Do you remember? In affirmation, like you are good, and creation is good. You're going to read, see, she's the only one who's actually reading out of the bulletin. That's good, nobody else is cheating. I should have told you to cram. Thanksgiving and ecstasy, experiencing God in pleasurable things. And then we did the Via Negativa, which says that we can experience God in darkness, in dark times, in our suffering times, in pain, and in struggle, in silence, and in solitude. And last week we talked about the Via Creativa, how we took those two paths, the paths of light and darkness, and weave them together to create something that has depth and meaning and purpose and the strands of knowledge of both the dark and light, that we create something specifically within ourselves that has depth. We create an inner wholeness and healing as we integrate those first two paths And then we create things outside of ourselves, hopefully too, that also have that depth and that beauty of integrating light and dark strands. So today, I left you last week with a question. And the question was, if, and that whole Via Creativa, so remember you are created in the image of God, right? Which says that you have creative powers, the divine creative energies within each of you. If that is the case, and we are all creators in this continuing evolving creation, and the divine is with us in each moment so that we are co-creators along with the essence of all that is, what will you create? That was the question as we left here. If we hold all of that and remember all of that, what do we create as we walk our paths every day? And hopefully the answer to that is the culmination in this final path, which is the Via Transformativa, which says that what we will create will be something transformative for ourselves and for the world. Because it will be created with compassion. Compassion being the transformative force of the universe. And so we talked about compassion a little bit with the kids and what that looks like. Matthew Fox says understanding compassion means that we consciously understand the interconnectivity between everything. That there's a consciousness of interconnectivity and there is a consciousness of equality of being. So when we hear that someone's riding around in a red car yelling the N-word, the part of us that says there is an equality of being that I know at the core of myself because I remember that we are all one and we are all connected. It hurts us because we have compassion for those that are at the receiving end of that. And the same with the anti-Semitism and the vandalism done at the synagogue. We recognize that things are not as they should be. And we have not put together all of these divine paths to fulfill the potential that we all have to be creative, kind, beautiful, wonderful people. I brought a symbol because I've always found this fascinating. So this is the Chinese symbol for peace, which is actually 3 symbols. It's rice, and that kind of square in the middle is mouth. And the last piece, which kind of looks like a scale, is balance. So it's rice plus mouth plus balance equals peace. When there is enough rice for every mouth, when we have all acted in a sense that says that balance in the universe means that every being is sacred, when we have leveled out our abundance, shared out of our abundance, because in compassion we understand that we're all connected, and so we want all people to be treated and loved and fed equally, then there will be peace. And so compassion is part of the way that happens. Perhaps the way that happens. Compassion starts inside, with ourselves, having self-compassion. You know, we've all screwed up. We've all done things that we beat ourselves up about. We've all made poor decisions. Or you're all perfect and it's just me. But I'm pretty sure that there are some things that perhaps, when we talked about the Via Negativa and the shadow side inside and those things that still haunt us, that we hold on to, it's those things that we need to have compassion for ourselves about. Why is it so hard, though, to have self-compassion? You know, if someone else came to you and said, oh, Clarice, I really screwed up. You know, I did this, and I hurt someone, and I felt awful about it ever since. You would say to me,
I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm listening. Can I help you? You should kind of let go.
right. You're not alone. I've been there. I've done it. You know, we've all done bad things. You'll get through this. What do you learn from this? How can you help make this right? You know, you don't go, wow, you're just a really awful person. You have compassion for them because they're hurting. You want to make it better for them, and you give them sort of a pass. You go, I get it. Okay, so you screwed up. So do what you can to make it right. Then learn from it and change and grow. Right? Don't sit and wallow in it. Let go or let be. We talked about letting be and sitting with it and needing to process it until you get to a place where you can let it go. Work on it. But for Pete's sakes, be gentle with yourself, because you're not the only person in the whole universe who ever did that. We can't edit our pasts. One thing I wanted to do over and over again, if I could just edit that little part out, be awesome. But we can't. So how do we have compassion for ourselves and who we are and what we've done? You know, I've tried to work on that. To work on having compassion for my younger self. Because as you look back, you know, when you have kids who are teenagers, you kind of go, gosh, we knew nothing. Right? You look at them and you think, oh, they're so young and they're so dumb. Inexperienced. Naive. Innocent. Immature. Nah, they don't, you know. But you don't get that until you're older. It was the end of the world when you were a teenager. When I was a teenager and my mother was dying and she died, and I looked back and I realized I hadn't been there the way I should have been there for her, and I didn't say the things I should have said. Well, it took me like 20, 30 years to go, hey, you were 17 for Pete's sakes. You did the best you could. Nobody showed you how to do it. Nobody told you what to do. Nobody held your hand and said, this is how you walk with a mother who's dying. And so I've had to learn to have compassion for myself so that can heal. If I don't have self-compassion, that doesn't heal and I don't move forward and I can't let it go. You know what I mean? So we have to learn to have compassion for that teenager or that young adult or that older adult or my stupid self yesterday and something that I'm sure I wasn't perfect about yesterday. We keep trying to do our best. And sometimes maybe we have to say, I'm sorry, or we have to try and heal something. But we have to have compassion for ourselves. And then maybe out of that compassion, we'll learn to have more compassion for others when they screw up. And I get that it's hard, because we're like knee-jerk reaction people. If we get annoyed or we get frustrated, you know, we go, oh my gosh, that person is just driving me crazy. You know, I'm pretty sure I've been the one standing in the grocery line when the person in front of me waits till it's all tallied up and then pulls out their checkbook. And I'm pretty sure I'm the one who rolls their eyes and goes, I need to learn not to do that. I haven't walked a mile in their shoes. I don't know what they're dealing with. Having compassion means thinking before we react, before we judge. And it's not always easy. Fox also says that having compassion necessitates acting with justice. Our scripture from Micah today starts with the people going, what does God want? What does God really want from me? And back in the day, it was what do I have to offer? Do I have to kill a bull? Does God want 10,000 rivers of oil? I think that was in there. What does God want from me? And the prophet kind of goes, would you get real? God doesn't need stuff. God doesn't need for you to burn something on the altar, whether it's a candle or something else. God only asks that you do justice, and you love kindness, and you walk humbly. Do justice. So let's talk about justice for a second. Because I think we get hung up on the justice system. That justice is all about courts and laws and penance and retribution and punishment. But I think it's more. So what is justice? Anyone?
Being fair.
Being fair.
Mercy, it starts with mercy.
It starts with mercy. Being fair with some mercy.
Proper balance.
Proper balance. So we're sort of almost back to our sign. So maybe this symbol of peace, having enough rice for every mouth, is not just peace, it's also justice. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, just behavior or treatment, would you say?
Just behavior.
Just
Just.
behavior or treatment.
Treating people justly,
Right.
fairly, equally. Yeah. It's how we live, isn't it? It's not just a system of justice. It's how we live our lives, how we treat others. To do justice is a daily walk. It's a daily path. And it starts by having compassion. But it has to be more than just saying, okay, I feel so bad for how, what you did. Or it's more than saying, boy, we're really sorry that the Jewish synagogue had some vandalism done. Perhaps we go and we stand with them in that service that you were talking about tonight. When we see someone being hurt, we stand with them. We speak out with a prophetic voice against injustice and intolerance. And I know that's hard too, because sometimes we feel like one person in a really big system of injustice in this world. Parker Palmer tells two stories in his book, An Active Life. One is about a woman that he knew who worked in New York City with the poor and the homeless, and just saw waves and waves of people every day with their struggles and their needs and their pain and their hurt. And he wondered how she kept doing it. How do you keep doing this when it doesn't ever seem to get any better? There's just more and more people coming. And she looked at him one day and she said, Parker, just because something's impossible doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And he tells another story about a young man that he knew who dedicated his life to the peace and justice effort, to stopping war. He lived at the poverty level so that he didn't have to pay taxes into a government that he felt was using some of that in ways that he didn't agree with. And he gave as much money as he could to efforts to end war and to bring peace and justice to the world. And again, Parker thought, well, over all the years that you've done this, has anything really changed? And really, if you look at the years that you've done this, wars have simply increased. And the young man looked to him and said, I've never judged what I've done on my effectiveness, simply on whether I've lived faithfully. to what he believed in, to live with honor and dignity and integrity. Compassion and justice are the heart and soul of the Via Transformativa. We choose how we live our days. We choose our actions. We choose our thoughts. We choose how we react to other people, how we judge other people. We really do. And we need to learn to choose differently. When we don't choose, we react. And a lot of times that's not healthy. We need to learn to choose more wisely, to err on the side of gentleness and compassion, to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, to reach out in justice and compassion, to stand with others, to stand for others. That's what's going to transform our lives, and that's what's going to transform the world. All of those paths walked and culminated in this transformation. And it's not just a one-time shot. We do this again and again and again. Every time we experience light, every time we have to struggle with darkness, every time we're asked, today, what are you going to create? And every time we choose to create something that's transformative or watch Jeopardy. Our choice. What will we choose? Amen.